Latin America, Human Geography, Part 2. What we'll be studying basically are the lifestyles and economics that are part of the Latin American culture. So let's kind of get into it. The first thing we'll take a look at is lifestyle. One thing that we noticed that when you study the Latin American lifestyle or the culture of a lot of Latin American countries is that there's a big extended family. Unlike the United States, where you traditionally have a nuclear family, which means that mother, father, kids. An extended family is different. That could be where you have mother, father, kids, and grandparents all living either in one house, under one roof, or close proximity. Also, something else that we'll notice that we've studied when we're studying the human geography of Latin America is that the incomes are very unevenly distributed. A humongous, large group of poverty. Humongous poverty. I mentioned this in the last video that Latin America, unlike the United States, where we have a very large middle class, a very small middle class in Latin America, very small wealth, very small class of wealthy people, and a tremendous part of the population, a large majority of the population is impoverished. That is illustrated by this picture. These are actually the favelas outside of Palo Alto, Brazil. And it's like the projects. So you'll see this backdrop of poverty, this tremendous backdrop. In all of these, there's very little, if any, electricity, probably no running water in any of the favelas. They're just basically cardboard structures. They're cardboard or plywood homes. And along the backdrop of the wealth of the city of Palo Alto. That is a very good, it's kind of a good way to think about it. Tremendous poverty. Tremendous poverty, and not like poverty when we say here. Tremendous poverty, no inside plumbing, very little electricity, contrasted against tremendous wealth. One thing, that we've seen with Latin America is that another aspect of the human geography is that the life expectancy, just like all over the world, just like here in the United States and everywhere else we studied, that the life expectancy of people are increasing. So people are living longer. And it's for the same things. That basic medicine is, even though they have intense, extreme poverty, the basic medicines that people are being able to be provided have extended lifespans. Also, medical advances, being able to treat more diseases, and being able to improve on your diet, improving on the diet. The infant mortality rates are higher. So birth rates high. We've discussed this. This has been a reoccurring theme. What happens when you have a high birth rate and a low infant mortality rate? Rapid population growth. So this is what Latin America is experiencing, rapid population growth. More kids have access to the free education. However, some of the challenges are that it's hard for children to get to school because the infrastructure is not well developed. What you mean is that there are not a lot of roads in a lot of rural areas are not paved. It's hard to get back from the rural areas to the schools. Also, there is a tremendous problem with kids having to work. So small kids work to support their families, to help support themselves. And so child labor is not illegal in some parts of Latin America. So in those places, you see a large amount of kids working. And it's extremely hard to break the cycle of poverty without an education. The homework question I want you guys to answer, it's on your notes guide. Make sure you answer in complete sentences. It pulls upon some prior learning that we have. Taking it back to population pyramids, is what should the population pyramid of Latin America look like since they have such a high birth rate? So take it back you can take a look at the videos on population pyramids or some of the application activities that we completed with those. Moving forward on the economy, a lot of countries in Latin America, they rely on agriculture, specifically bananas, coffee, sugarcane. Also ranching. These are the gauchos. Some pictures of gauchos, cattle raising meat producing. These are the gauchos from the pampas of the southern part of Latin America. Also, though, what we've seen developing in Latin America, especially in Mexico and probably Brazil, are a developing manufacturing base. So developing in manufacturing and service industries, which are things we want to think about, intellectual property, technology, those types of jobs in Brazil, Venezuela, and Mexico. We're also starting to see some factories in Latin America producing steel, automobiles, textiles, cement, chemicals, and electric goods. Now, even though we do have this developing service industry in Latin America, the majority of the people, or the majority of the countries, the largest industry is agriculture, and a very large percentage of the people is subsistence agriculture, which means they're just producing enough to live. They're just producing enough to meet their daily needs for them to live, to keep them and their families going. And so just kind of reviewing over these notes is that many developing countries meets their needs the same as their ancestors. It's little industry, very little industry. 40% of the workforce of Latin America is in the agriculture. Traditional or subsistence farming, it depends on the human labor and the animal power. Basic tools, when we say basic tools, we mean basic tools. And single crop economies, which are risky because you're at the risk because natural disasters can wipe out your crops. If it's a cash crop, you can't grow any food, which means that you would literally starve if a hurricane comes. If there's a hurricane and it wipes out your crop before you're able to sell it. So this is a real problem. Some of the challenges more challenges that the people of Latin America are facing, besides what we've mentioned so far economically, are it's very hard to develop an industry. Their industry is not developing for any number of reasons. One is a lack of capital, a lack of money. The wealthy may not be investing in those areas. There's a lack of outside investors from internationally investing for some of the reasons we touched on previously. Unstable governments, infrastructure is not developed. These are the things that you will need in order to promote foreign investments. Also, there's not a lot of skilled workers, very poor transportation systems and infrastructure, not enough sources of industry, not enough sources of energy. All of this goes back to infrastructure, roads, sanitation, having electricity, having communication with telephones. All of these are basic things that we take for granted here that are a challenge in Latin America. And because of this, it prevents investment, foreign investment. Unstable governments. Once again, this is something that we mentioned in the previous video. Unstable governments it prevents other countries from investing and investors from other countries from investing. Talking about, though, some of the economy of Latin America, tourism is humongous, especially in the Caribbean. This is actually a picture of one of the tourist resorts in the Caribbean. I want to say in the Jamaica area. Humongous. Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. You want to think about all those areas in the Caribbean, St. Lucia, all those areas that are known for tourism. That is their number one economy, is based on tourism. Trade is big. The number one, and normally with trade is traded for agriculture, and raw materials are traded back for manufactured goods, and this is kind of what happens. For example, you take agriculture and vegetables and fruit and gold, trade it to a developing country or a developed country like the United States for iPads, for example. This is a lot of the trade that the people of Latin America do, or Latin American countries do. They trade raw materials for processed or manufactured goods, technology goods, and it's oftentimes this goes to the United States. We are the number one trading partner with Latin America. And oftentimes Europe and the United States, in order to help the countries of Latin America, they provide these countries with loans to help them develop infrastructure and the things that will promote foreign investment. And getting into transportation, again, touching back on transportation, many of the roads in Latin America are not paved. and it's just due to geography. We talked about how it's a lot of mountains in Latin America. It's very hard. It takes a lot of investment in infrastructure, and so that the physical geography makes it hard. A lot of the rail equipment is out of date. Oftentimes, water and air are the best ways to travel in Latin America. So you see a huge investment recently in boats and airplanes. So planes and boats for traveling are becoming more important. And this is just another illustration of a road in parts of Central America and South America where they're not paved. So once it rains and they have a rainy season, a stronger rainy season than we do, this turns to mud. And if it rains long enough, it'll be impossible to travel the roads. You have to not only wait for the rain to subside, but you have to wait for the roads to dry out. And the homework question, the last two, is how does this lack of transportation and infrastructure affect trade in Latin America? And how does it affect new investments? The end. Have a great day.